I had to start it with that.
What was that?
That was Will Power. That was his radio right after he crossed the finish line.
Oh,
You don't remember that he said that?
no, because I saw the last lap on the one of the TVs at Charlotte, and the sound was pretty low.
No, yeah, yeah. That's just in case you didn't know. That's what he said right after he crossed the line. He was that nutty. Freaking Aussies are the worst, man.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's the last time we have to see him win a 500.
I don't know.
The
Yeah,
Penske driver.
just because. Well, yeah. Well, that goes back to the point I was saying. For the preview last week. I told you, man, Penske's are just too good right now. Now, my mistake was thinking that Newgarden. I mean, I still think that Newgarden is the strongest Penske driver overall, but not at Indy, apparent for this time around.
Yeah. I thought Pagano was your second pick, wasn't it?
Was it? If it was, then I'm really off. Yeah.
Newgarden was your first, and Pagano was the second, I thought.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I still would have stood by that. I mean,
I was pretty close. I
yeah,
got third.
yeah.
Although I kind of lucked into that through strategy, but still. It's just nice to see Dixon actually finish the race.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he usually finishes the race. It's just but that time where he doesn't finish it, it feels like a long time before you get that. You get to see him actually do good the next time around.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we'll just I'll go through the field because it was a pretty. I mean, for the most part, it was a good race. I mean, me as a spectator, I had a fun time. I really wish I'd seen more passing, not just on the restarts, but that was going to be a hard thing to see anyway, just because of the new aero package. Because of the new aero package, they just don't get as much downforce as they used to. That's something that they're going to have to work on for the next year or so.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised
Yeah,
that.
but then, yeah,
I
but
mean,
then
as far as I
again,
remember, nobody actually made a pass for the lead after a restart, except like right at the end. Like the last 10 laps or something. Before then, I think every lead changes on a restart or pit cycles.
not always on. I think there was one where Ed Carpenter passed Tony Kanaan. That was one lap after the
Right. Yeah,
restart.
that was the only one though,
If
because
you,
Kanaan
yeah,
got him on a restart, and then the next lap or 2 laps after Carpenter. Yeah, but yeah, the leader really kind of had a stranglehold on first place,
yeah,
seemingly no matter who it was.
there were a few exciting passes that like happened not on restarts. They were rare. It felt like a Formula One race in that regard.
Yeah. Well,
It was
no,
like,
I know like other people in the field are passing, but not for the
yeah,
lead.
like at the beginning of the race, Joseph Newgarden got into second place on the actual start of the race. He passed Simon Pagenaud. Then Pagenaud got a really nice pass, back, took second, and then like for the first 40 laps, Pagenaud just settled in second, right behind Carpenter.
Yeah.
And I think there was a pretty nice pass that Robert Wickens made on the backstretch, if I remember correctly. That was
Yeah.
granted he was a little further back then, but I remember seeing that pass on the screen.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean Rossi's stuff on the restarts was
Oh, we'll get into that later.
unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Well,
I've
he's.
never seen anybody
I
do
said it.
that at Indianapolis
Yeah. I
the
said
way
it
he did
last.
it.
I said it last year, man. He proved last year that maybe his win in 2016 wasn't a fluke, and I think I feel even more vindicated with that statement 1 year later.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree.
Maybe, yeah, maybe luck played into 2016, but he certainly isn't a driver without any serious talent.
Hmm.
But I digress. So I guess I'll just kind of go through the field a little, like the finishing field. 33rd and 32nd is James Davison and Takuma Sato, respectively. That was the first crash. I think it was on lap
Yeah.
47. Davison was
Yeah.
on the lap down. That's why he got 33rd. And that was because he had a really awful car, couldn't control it at all. I think the consensus really about that was it was really nobody's fault because Sato really just couldn't move around that speed differential.
Yeah. If anything, it was the crew's fault for not pitting him. I mean, he was off the pace for at least 10 laps, like way off the pace for about 10 laps. I think at that point the crew should have done something, but
Yeah,
they
but
just
then
left
again,
him out there.
yeah, but it's the Indy 500. You don't want to lose precious track position. Even if you know you're not going to win. You
Well,
don't
he was
want.
already in like 20 something. I mean,
Yeah, that was
he's
kind
got
of
to
the
be
same
crashing.
complaint. Kind of the same complaint though about Jay Howard last year. Like, why didn't he pit? Why did he just stay out? And that cost Dixon his race.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, but he wasn't quite as slow. I mean, he was a back marker, but like Davison was like 3 or 4 seconds slower than everyone. I mean, he was like that indicates a problem. That's not just a slow car. So why they left him out there, for so long to cause a problem? I mean, he almost wrecked several people in that period. It wasn't just Takuma Sato.
yeah,
Like a lot of people had to dodge him.
yeah, I had heard that. Yeah, I had heard that.
But
I think
yeah,
Connor Daly made a really nice pass on him, like right before that. That was like one of his only good moves of the race.
of his
But
career. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't. Sato really wasn't that impressive for the most part. I mean, I actually saw his car when I settled into my seat. I was like sitting right across from his car on the starting grid before they actually started the engines,
Mm-hmm.
which that was cool. To see like the defending champ, but he just wasn't in the optimal spots. He was starting in the late teens, and there's really just nowhere to move from there. So even if Sato hadn't crashed, maybe he could have gotten a top 10, but he certainly, wasn't a top 5 car in my opinion.
Yeah.
Which, all right, and then of course after that, that's when the so that was, that whole crash, I think, at the 47th lap, that kind of broke, it was kind of a boring, first, quarter of the race, which was just Ed Carpenter dominating the whole way throughout.
Yeah.
It was, and really no movements. One thing I do remember was, and I said it right away because I counted the cars as they went by the start finish line on the first lap, and I noticed that Danica fell from 7th to 12th, and I
12.
and I
Yeah.
yeah, I did a good job counting that, like, right on the first lap, because I like to, I'm pretty good at keeping account of things, and I'm just telling everybody around me. It's like, hey, everybody, Danica just lost 5 positions on that first lap.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I predicted was going to happen too. I said she was going to drop like a rock as soon as they waved the green flag.
Yeah, and then after that, that's when all the pit strategy stuff kind of got weird. I think Clayman DeMello was in front for on the yellow flag because he decided not to pit under caution.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird. And then right after that, just a couple laps after the restart, Ed Jones crashed. Really glad I didn't pick him to go very far this time around. He's been just showing yet again how much of a disappointment he's been for the Ganassi team. He's had several crashes, and he had that one third place finish, but nothing really else. Nothing really in between that.
Yep.
I think he actually left. They said he had like head and neck injuries, so he left, went to the hospital at the track, and then got released later in the day.
Yeah, I don't remember much about that.
Oh, I was going to mention one thing about James Davison. I apparently ran into some family members of his after the race. Like, I was walking, waiting for an Uber. It took a long time to actually get an Uber just because of the traffic. Got sunbaked in the humid weather. That was not fun. But apparently, I'd stopped at a Subway, and that's when I just talked to a couple because they were wearing like James Davison like shirts, and I said, "Oh, I didn't know he had any fans," and their response was, "Well, maybe not many fans, but he does have family."
I didn't even know they made shirts.
What? Yeah, neither did I.
They must have been homemade.
Probably. Uh, And then obviously after that, I think another restart, and then Danica Patrick crashed, which I think I had said to you right away. It's like, you know what? I think I sent a message to you, and I said, there's no more appropriate way for her to end her career.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I color me unsurprised that happened. It's fitting too that it was, absolutely no one's fault other than hers.
Yeah, same spot as
Nobody can
Jones,
bullshit
and
and say, right.
Yeah, I've actually seen like a few like IndyCar pundits that I know of, who are literally trying to like save face for Danica. They're trying to say, well, you know what, she was doing what she needed to do. You know, she didn't have that bad of a race. You know, to ignore the
Yeah,
fact that
like
she
every
lost five.
IndyCar commentator ever.
Yeah, yeah. I get so
Never
tired of
had
like,
Goodyear.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
saying, like what a legendary career she's had. It's
Oh
like,
my God,
no,
yeah. That was like the
no.
broad. I saw that a little bit of the broadcast when I got back home, and they did the same thing. They they were showing like some of the career stats, but trying to they were being very selective with the stats, trying to paint her in a good picture and saying, well, you know what, I think she's had a good career.
Yeah, well, at least we don't have to listen to that anymore.
Yep, yep. I don't know. To be honest, I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if she came back. You know, a lot of these talks of retirement never really pan out. AJ Foyt said he was going to retire in 1991. He came back for 1992. Michael Andretti said he was going to retire in 2003. He then came back in 2006 and also raced in 2007. So even if it's not going to be next year, she could be back. 2 3 years from now. I mean, she's only 36 years old right now, and drivers can race well into their 40s, well into their 50s, and that includes for women drivers as well. Just to put that into perspective, when Lynn St. James was a rookie in 1992, she was 45. So I don't know. I kind of lean 50-50, really, on whether she would come back or not. I hope she doesn't. I really just hope that this is the end because I'm sick of her shit.
Yeah, I don't think she will. I don't think anybody give her a ride again.
Hell no. I'm kind of surprised Ed Carpenter gave her a ride.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wouldn't put it past me to have Andretti give her a ride again, just because Andretti always has these gimmicks where they give a ride to anybody, really.
Yeah, I'm actually racing for him next year. Now that you mention it.
So yeah, that does that with Danica. Hopefully the end, but we'll see. Kyle Kaiser was 29th. He dropped out due to mechanical issues after 110 laps. Very uneventful. I mean, that whole. I mean, like, I see it kind of the same way I see James, or Jay Howard, right? It's like, really, this guy got into the field, but James Hinchcliffe didn't.
Yeah.
But, like,
Well, that's how
well, the only.
Indianapolis always like half the drivers in Indy are always unremarkable, really.
Yeah, but
Well,
they always
recently
try.
anyway. It's like the back half is just people that only run Indy and they finish in the back anyway.
And they try to prop him up, like in the case of Kaiser, like his whole claim to fame was that he was last year's IndyCar Lights champ, which, like, it seems like they always get a ride, with IndyCar the next year after that, and they never really come up to peak performance.
Yeah.
All right, but then I think you said I think you had told me that you were going to the Coke 600 and you were streaming it. You missed really laps 100 to 130. That was really when it got boring. But there was some of the stuff I missed before that was that's when Tony Kanaan was starting to make his move. He had passed Ed Carpenter for the second time because he actually lost his lead after one of the restarts to Carpenter. Got it. Then I think it was after the Danica crash where he took the lead and had it for good, but then lost it in the cycle of pit stops because he punctured a tire, and that's what put him a lap down. Which then he had to subsequently get it back, and I think he took it back from Will Power, like actually on the green flag, which I thought was impressive in and of itself. I mean, we'll get to Tony Kanaan later, but I mean, just because Tony Kanaan crashed, I still think it was an overall good race for him, at least in terms of what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, he was stronger than I anticipated. I'll definitely give him that.
And no
I
one
thought
really,
he'd be good on restarts, but then he would just fall back. But he,
yeah.
kind of held his own
All
until
right.
he had problems.
28th was Sebastian Bourdais, crashed, I think, on lap 138. That was in the chute between 3 and 4. And what makes that crash interesting is it shows that he really hasn't learned any lessons from his awful crash last year in qualifying. Because the stupid thing that Bourdais did last year was that when his car was starting to spin out, he tried to save it by turning the wheel in the other direction, and that's really what fucked him over.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw that crash.
But he did the same thing this time around. He tried to. I mean, the car was going to crash anyway, but he tried to save it again.
Actually,
Where
no, I did. I did. Yeah.
yeah, he jerked.
Yeah.
Well, like it was starting to spin around. The back end was starting to come around, so he tried to save it, and that's when the car like made two full two full spins like in the other direction,
Hmm.
and that's when he hit the wall. I think going into turn four. But it showed that he's still trying to save the car even after it's starting to spin out, which is a very risky thing to do. He got lucky this time that it wasn't a hard hit like last year, but it's that kind of thing that cost drivers their lives.
Yeah.
Now here's the fun part. 27th crashed, I think, on the first lap after the next restart, after on lap 146, Helio Castroneves. So I'll just tell the person. I mean, it was a good race for him because he was actually in fourth place up until that point. That's the disappointing thing. Do I think he could have won it? I doubt it, but maybe a top three certainly was. I mean, a lot of people thought just because he's not an IndyCar regular anymore. Some doubted how well he would do, but I think he shows that he's an Indy natural. But so after he wrecked, he walked down because he walked down pit road, and he actually passed me. So I was following him because there's a little alley or a walkway that you can go on you're allowed to walk on between Victory
Hmm.
Lane and Gasoline Alley. And so I was walking right next to him across this fence. That's what separates the fans from the drivers in the pit road. And the funny thing is, and maybe I'll just screen share it. I was actually on TV for a couple of seconds on the ABC telecast.
Yeah. Well, I'll admit I didn't see that live at the time, but after you told me about it, I did go back and see it.
Yeah, that was because that was actually when I got back home on Tuesday. That was actually like legit. That was actually like the first thing I looked for because I kind of thought with all these journalists like following Helio Castroneves because he was giving an interview while he was walking back to the infield care center, and I just kind of thought I'm pretty sure there had to have been a camera or two, uh, yeah, at least on ABC, one of the ABC cameras that was on them. Maybe they got me too, and sure enough, like, the first thing I see is myself, and that was, I mean, again, I was only on international TV for like 2 seconds, and I wasn't really the focus of attention, but I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were definitely the talk of the dinner table at many households worldwide. So
Yeah, I wish.
at least got that.
Okay, so hold on, just you can see where I'm at.
Yeah.
Hold on, just ah, and that's me right there.
Yeah. Just awkwardly stalking him in the back.
I
How big a
mean, so is
paparazzi?
everybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, and well, this is actually what makes it more interesting. I wasn't the this see this lady right there in the red shirt? That's Will Power's wife. So
Oh, really?
no,
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't
Yeah,
even
I can
real
see it.
I didn't even know I walked by her. To be honest, that was the until afterward. I was like, oh wow, I actually walked by Will Power's wife and didn't even know it.
Hmm.
But okay. So after and then of course after that wreck, then Sage Karam wrecked. Surprise, surprise. I think did one of us predict that Karam would wreck? But then again,
I
that's
think
not.
we both did. I think we both did.
It's so predictable now. That's the fourth
Yeah,
year
I
in a
don't know
row.
how he keeps getting rides.
I don't. That's
Like,
the first thing I said too. I said, this is. The first thing I said to the people around me was, this is the fourth year in a row he's had a DNF. How the hell does this guy keep getting rides?
yeah.
I think some are hedging their bets that he's not going to crash it because if he's not going to crash, he might get a good finish. You know how I mentioned that Helio was in fourth before his crash. Sage Karam was in sixth place before his crash.
Yeah.
And you have to think, I mean, he started pretty far back too. So for him to, and he did the same thing in 2016. He started far back. He got up to fifth place before he crashed in 2016. Now this year he gets to six, and he also started back, I think, in the 20s. I'm actually looking up what Sage Karam's starting position was. He started 24th. So, I mean, that's, if he's lucky enough to avoid the wall, I mean, you could be seeing more top tens out of this guy. He's not a bad oval driver. He's just unlucky for the most part.
He's a bad oval finisher.
Yeah, so I think that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, wrecked out of the lead at Pocono in 2015.
Yeah, it's the one that killed Justin Wilson, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how much you put that on him, though. It seems like a lot
No,
of
but
cars
it's
were
just
wrecking.
another example of him wrecking on an oval.
Yeah, but a lot of cars were wrecking that day on Pocono, weren't they? It
Like three, maybe.
was like
But
half the
those were on
field wrecked.
restarts. His was just, out of the blue.
I think they, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had heard that something did break on the car. That's at least what some are. I think
Maybe.
I have heard that. I don't know,
Yeah, but
but
anyway.
either way, 25th Kanan also crashed. I think on lap 188, which upset it for him because he really crawled his way back to the top 10 before that. I think it was actually. I mean, I don't think he was in 10th at the time because they were still cycling through green flag pit stops. But the fact that he was able to make his way pretty far back up, get that lap back, crawl his way back into the top 10 at one point. And the fact that he did it in an AJ Foyt car, which those Foyt cars are kind of notorious for always sucking at Indy.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty shitty finish, but I think there's at least more that meets the eye than just the raw finish.
Yep, definitely in his case.
I would like to say, I mean, Kanan is in such good shape. I don't know I think he's 43 or 44. He could probably keep racing into his late 40s, maybe his 50s. He has the
I don't
physique
see
to
him being
do it.
around that long. Not 50s anyway.
I mean, Al
Well,
Unser,
I don't. Yeah, but Al Unser was better than Tony Kanaan. I just don't know who. I mean, he'll have the capacity. I just don't know who's going to sign him on for that long.
it's a fair point. I would still say late 40s, maybe not the 50s, but there's going to be a few teams that would want a former champion.
Mm, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? So who's next?
And this is now these are all the cars that actually finished the race. Jay Howard, 24th, 7 laps down, and once again, just
Solid
don't
effort.
know don't know why this guy keeps don't know why this guy keeps getting rides. I thought his awful performance in 2017 would have kept him away from the track this year.
We got that sponsorship. Apparently, that's all it takes.
They could have put in again. I was hoping that he would get replaced by James Hinchcliffe because that was that was his teammate. Hinch probably would. I mean, it was probably the shittiest car out of the Schmidt Peterson stable, but I think at least Hinchcliffe probably could have gotten into a slightly better position than Howard.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have finished 7 laps down.
No. Zach Veach was 23rd, 2 laps down. I think I already told you this before we went on air, but shook hands with the guy after the race. He walked by because I saw him as he was about to go into Gasoline Alley, stopped by, gave some autographs to other fans. He actually caught fire in the pits. That's what he was famous for doing. But other than that, not a very good performance. I mean, especially when you're falling 2 laps behind in an Andretti car. I don't think there's really much of an excuse for that.
Yeah, basically.
22nd, Chilton, also 2 laps down. Certainly not the performance like last year, where he actually led most of the laps and got fourth, much to our surprise. It really goes to show it's not a fun life when you get canned by the Ganassi team. I think Sage Karam learned that lesson too.
Yeah, and Charlie Kimball was in the process of learning it.
But isn't Kimball? Oh yeah, he is in the process. He's not with them anymore either. I just
Yeah.
Connor Daly, 21st, yeah, 1 lap down. Probably he was pretty much one of the slowest cars before all the crashes. He really was only able to get up to not even good position like 21st just because of the fact that a bunch of other cars crashed. The only reason people give Daly any media attention is because he's from Indiana, which that's the thing that actually irritates me a lot. Which is if you're a native Indianan, you naturally are just entitled to media attention, no matter how skilled you are. So even if you're someone like Connor Daly, you just get it.
Yeah. Well, I guess thank God Danica's not from Indiana. Then
Oh yeah,
we'd have to put up with twice as much bullshit.
bordering state though. She's from Illinois.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, I know. Thank God, because it's close. 20th was a bit of a surprise. Spencer Pigot, who he was a top 10 car, but around the same time Tony Kanaan had his pit issues. He was too fast. I think entering pit road. I don't know if it was entering or exiting, but so he had to make a green flag pass through, and he was never able to get his lap back. Finished 1 lap down. Uh, I mean, I expected more from Spencer Pigot. I think because I think when you're on the Ed Carpenter Racing team, I think that's a good team. I mean, you know it's about as good as Andretti is as far as I see it.
I wouldn't say that, but they're a contender.
At Indy they are,
Yeah. I mean, only at Indy.
and some other oval tracks. Just because, at least when Ed Carpenter jumps into his own car, because he only races the ovals.
Yeah.
You actually remember that time when I think Ed Carpenter would run full time for the first couple of years when he started his new team. He was so bad on the road courses.
Yeah. Yeah, he stopped doing that. All right. So who? That's
Clayman
20th. Who's after that?
19th, also the 19 car, Zachary Clayman DeMello sat right behind his pit box. Saw some cool. I think that was the first time I saw an IndyCar pit stop. He led for a little bit. I already mentioned because he decided not to pit after one of the caution flag or after one of the caution periods. Just, he was only a rookie. Maybe he'll get more experience. I don't know. He's only 20 years old, and he's already on the Dale Coyne Racing team. So that's not a totally bad place to be right now in your career.
Yeah, I would take it.
18th,
Saying,
Charlie.
Well.
Okay, so everything from 18th on forward finished on the lead lap. Charlie Kimball was 18th. He almost got lapped by Will Power at the very end. He finished like his car was like 2 car lengths ahead of Will Power before he got lapped. So that kind of just goes to show where he's at right now. Not very impressive. I think the fact that he was on Ganassi for that long, though, is an even bigger shocker.
Sponsorship. It's basically what drives 3/4 of the driver lineups.
Mm-hmm. 17th was Oriol Servia. He was, he took the lead, for like 12 laps before he got passed by Stefan Wilson on that final restart. And then he inevitably actually got passed by Harvey as well as Will Power. And then he had to pit. So I don't know. I just, I'm pretty sure Servia, he'll always find a way back at Indy, for a while. But I mean, there was a time where he was on a good team, the Newman Haas team, where he actually he had shots to win. He also had a
Hmm.
shot at winning in 2005 when he finished second on the Ray Hall Letterman team. But I mean, at this point, unless if he gets like lucky on fuel efficiency, I mean, there's really no chance that he has.
Well, you could see him back there in the pace car at least. That's what he does at every other track.
Oh, he does?
Um, at a lot of them. I don't know about all of them, but yeah.
I heard it was Sarah Fisher who was doing the pace car this year.
No, I know Serbia's done it several times.
Yeah. I was good. Well, in regards to Sarah Fisher, that's a place where she belongs pretty well. I think she fits pretty well in the pace car because she was a really awful driver.
Yeah.
You actually, have you seen like the old Sarah Fisher highlights? Like she used to be the talk of the track before Danica because she was the woman, like she was the only woman on the circuit for like 5 years, and then Danica came along. She was even worse than her, believe it or not.
I don't believe it, but anyway.
You have to like just YouTube Sarah Fisher highlights. It is something to behold.
All right.
It's that bad. Um, 16th was Harvey in second place, obviously, before he peeled off the track along with Stephen Wilson, who got 15th. I'll just mention them both. The thing, and I mentioned already before, I actually got a fist bump from Stephen Wilson after the race. He walked by me. I thought it was Clayman DeMello. That's how much I get these guys mixed up at first. Wilson was actually really nice. Before I came to him, there was this little kid who walked right next to him, who walked right up to him, right at the fence area, and he asked him like, "Can I ask you a question? Is it really how much fun is it to be in a race car?" And he was nice enough. He's like, "Oh, it's a lot of fun," and he made at least some type of conversation with the kid. Which I respect that. It's always good that it's good when drivers engage the fans, especially the younger ones. Make sure that the fandom can at least last for generations. Because I didn't really see very many young people there. A lot of it was older people, and my worry is that I get it. It's Indy. There'll always be loyal fans, but I don't know. I'm a little worried that like the next generation might not be into it as much. As the baby boomer generation. I'm kind of an exception.
Yeah, I would say that's true of racing fans generally, not just Indy.
Well, in the case of NASCAR, they're pissing off both like the baby boomers and they're not really gaining any new millennial fans. They're fucking it both ways.
Hmm.
IndyCar, might be a little. The series itself. I worry about the future of the series. The Indy 500 race, not so much, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
14th, Gabby Chavez. Not really worth mentioning because he's so uneventful. It's unbelievable. He's probably the most invisible guy, like on the pagoda, to be honest.
I agree. I forget he's in this race every year.
Yeah. 13th was Kanan's teammate Matthias Leist. He's the 19-year-old Brazilian racing for Foyt.
Yeah.
That's not bad. He was the
He finished
second
like
highest
for a rookie.
second
For a
highest
rookie,
finish.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he was making a lot of rounds during qualifying because he started in the fourth row alongside Kanan.
Yeah.
He was like the second fastest guy in out of the top nine. And like I said, second highest finishing rookie behind Robert Wickens. So again, kind of it's a good place to be in your career. We'll have to see what the future holds for him. I don't think he's going to have much success if he's on the Foyt team for too long.
Yeah.
The best thing for him is
nobody will.
Yeah, the best thing is to use the Foyt team really as a stepping stone to get to a better team.
Yeah.
12th, much to my disappointment, was Marco Andretti. I just keep hoping that I'm gonna run.
You should stop doing that. Just save
Can't.
yourself a lot of heartache.
It's. I always hold out for some like hope, but after it became very clear with about like 50 laps to go that it wasn't gonna happen.
Well, did you watch the race today?
Yeah, I heard he did good today in
Yeah,
Detroit.
he won the pole.
Won the pole, got fourth place.
Yeah.
He might do good on points this year, but this time the thing is like,
That's
it,
that's
it,
his first pole in forever, though.
yeah, the thing is like this is him at Indy every year now. He always does well, like in the first week of practice. Has a somewhat disappointing qualifying session. Never isn't able to get into the fast nine, and then he just kind of he doesn't race aggressive at all during the race. He just kind of starts in the middle of the pack and just hangs out there. And the only time he really finishes in the top 10 is really when other drivers fade away or crash.
Yeah.
This time he actually made his way up to sixth at one point, I remember, but then had a bad pit stop, I think, late in the race, and that's what caused him to fall back in the pack. He had a funny joke, I think, at the Indy 500 banquet where he said, I think I had such a struggle like on those last 20 laps. I think I got passed by my grandfather in the two-seater.
Yeah. Well, at least he's a little bit, humorous about it.
He understands his place, and he understands that he's not in a high place really on the IndyCar circuit. I mean, I don't know if he would not be on the Andretti team if it wasn't for his last name.
Yeah, exactly.
They would have dumped
he would have
his
been
ass.
he would have been fired like 10 years ago.
10-5.
Maybe.
Yeah, he had some good. I mean, he has a couple wins, and he had a good year in 2013. It's like everything's like the last 5 years have sucked in particular. I think got fifth in points in 2013. Everything else has just been a struggle since then.
Yeah.
I mean, days like today for Andretti are just so rare.
Yep.
But they're nice when they happen. 11th, J.R. Hildebrand on the Dreyer and Reinbold team. They only race at Indy once a year. I guess somewhat okay finish. He only got that far really on pit road strategy, but you still get a good check for an 11th place finish. I think it's just time to accept that 2011 was his one and only shot to win the 500, and he blew it.
Yeah. It's still painful to think about.
I sometimes forget that. I usually forget though that he's the guy that fucked it up. And then it comes to me. It's like, oh yeah, it was Hildebrand. Now I know why. Now I know why this guy means a lot, or why he's kind of or at least why he stands out. This is his thing, and I don't think he can really brush off that legacy. Does he
Unless
even
he wins, but yeah.
I don't think he's ever won an IndyCar race. Period.
No, I meant if he wins the 500, I think that would have at least mitigated, if not really erase it.
Yeah,
for
but even
him,
but even win in general, like he has never won an IndyCar race in his career ever.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Top 10, Graham Rahal 10th. He led for quite a few laps on again green flag pit strategy, tried to hold it out. I mean, but it was impressive for him because he came up from 30th. He started back in row 10, so I'll give him credit where it's due. It was a mix of mix of speed.
I think we called that happening too. We
Well,
said he's going to qualify poorly and then race all the way in the top 10 because he always does that.
But he does this a lot. I mean, this is par for the course for him. He usually starts back like around row 9 or row 10, and then always finds a way to get to the tail end of the top 10. It's so predictable now.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Wickens, 9th. Not bad. Not a bad run for him. Did better than I thought he was going to do because he really was more. He was top 15, carved up most of the race. Really only moved to the top 10 towards the end. I do think that Wickens is going to get at least one win this year. I just think it's got to happen at some point.
Yeah.
If he stays, maybe in.
I thought he would have done better today, honestly, but
yeah. Maybe next. I don't think he's in for. I mean, he can be a championship contender probably for the end of the year, but I think he has. I think he'll probably be a championship driver either next year or the year after that.
I think he's probably going to get signed with like Ganassi or something next year, or a bigger team. Wouldn't surprise me.
He'll probably dump Ed Jones at the end of this year. Probably replace him with
That would
Wickens.
be a good move.
Yeah. Eighth was my pick, Joseph Newgarden, who was a bit unusual. He actually, when he was running like around the top five, he was a top five car at the beginning, for those first 40 laps. Then he actually made a pit stop when nobody on the yellow flag when nobody else was, fell back to 20th, and then just kind of hung around to the top 15, and just kind of slowly made his way back. It seemed like, I mean, I get it. It was probably a gamble that they made. Because they knew that at the beginning that Newgarden really just didn't have the speed to keep up with Power or Carpenter, but he's still I mean he probably could have given himself a top five finish if they didn't go with that gamble. I think Newgarden could have done a lot better than this. So I was a little disappointed. I mean, I generally don't like the Penske team, but I kind of wanted to be right on the prediction regardless.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about him.
Well, he's probably going to win it's either going to be him or Power winning the championship. It's going to be because the irritating thing is like it's not just Penske doing well at the 500. It's that Penske, like for the past 2-3 years, has just dominated the points race.
Yeah, at least 2 years.
The only thing that really stopped Montoya in 2015 was Dixon at the end.
You're damn right. I actually think Dixon's got a good shot this year. Like after today, anyway.
It's just Scott Dixon against all the Penske cars.
Yeah, that's what it is every season. Every season, it's Dixon versus the Penske basically. That's why it'd be nice to see Robert Wickens step into the 10 car. So
well, yeah. This time though, I think Rossi's got a shot to contend though.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's what makes this year maybe slightly more exciting in terms of the points race over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the points right now is Rossi, Dixon, and then Will Power.
Ninth was Carlos Munoz. If you actually remember, I'm not sure if you remember this, but he barely avoided the Sato Davidson wreck.
Yeah.
He swerved around Davison to the outside and barely missed him. That could have been the end of his race there.
Yeah, and then Rahal took the access road to dodge it.
Yep,
it's pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I like Munoz. I really want him to win at some point, just because. And I'm glad that he's back with Andretti because I think that's a good fit for him. Because he's a 2-time runner-up. He has the talent to win. I think he's finished in the top 5 3 times, and this. Because he's only raced at Indy 6 times in his career, and I think 4 of those times he's finished in the top 10. So he's a good, consistent driver at Indy. He just needs to. I think he just needs to have better equipment for the net at some time. At least be a top 5 driver for most of the day, and maybe he could have a shot at victory lane. Because he still isn't really getting all the best resources even at Andretti. Because most of the good equipment and the good engineers go to Ryan Hunter-Reay and Alexander Rossi.
Yeah,
he's still kind of a low priority, but he has potential. I think Carlos Munoz is hands down the most underrated driver on the entire circuit.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair point. He's won more races than Danica, and he never gets talked about. So
he's won 2 races.
Yeah,
I know he won one of them.
Yeah, he won Detroit, and then some other race.
I'm looking at him on Wikipedia right now. He's only got 1 win, and it was 2015 in Detroit.
Okay, then never mind. But still, he's tied with wins for Danica, and he never gets talked about.
Just hoping maybe he can get another.
Maybe he should get a sex change. He'd be like the first transgender IndyCar driver, and then he'd
Yeah.
be all the rave.
You can only hope. Simon Pagino, sixth. He was in second place right at the beginning, and he hung around there. But I think he got a little unlucky on pit stops. That's what really drove him down, and wasn't all that good on wasn't that good on restarts either, from what I remember.
Yeah. He finished about where I thought he would.
Yeah. Fifth, Ryan Hunter-Reay. I actually saw him after. Again, I saw him walking towards Gasoline Alley at the end of the race. One of the pictures I took of Zach Veach, you can actually see Ryan Hunter-Reay in the background. Part of me wanted just to yell out to him and try to get his attention, but I'm just not that kind of person.
I would throw something at him.
Yeah, I just don't like to. I don't like to be the loud, obnoxious guy. It's just not my style. All right, now here's the fun one. Alexander Rossi in fourth. Started back in 30 seconds, so he was the highest mover from the beginning to this race to the end. Those. What's there really to say about those restarts? Especially passing on the outside in the chute between 1 and 2. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, like I said, I've never seen it. I've seen people make passes on the outside, but not like 4 or 5 consecutive ones like that. I mean,
yeah, and then
he was almost 3 wide on the outside at some points, and it was
he was like a paper lengths away from the wall. Like he was pretty close to hitting it. One of those times too.
He's got balls.
He risked everything and came out on top. So
in fourth,
I know he was actually running. I think he got up to third at one point, and he was running up there pretty comfortably. The only reason he was faster than Dixon. Dixon just got in on strategy.
Yep.
And it comes to the next point, Scott Dixon. I didn't expect much from him because he was the slowest out of the Fast 9 in qualifying. I felt like his car really wasn't that impressive in those final days, really leading up to the race. But he was smart, and he has some of the smartest pit crew members, really, when you think about it.
Mike Hull.
What?
Mike Hull is legit.
Oh yeah, best strategist. And they calculated it right on the fuel, because he was actually running up until that point, though, like on the last green flag stops, he was running 2 seconds slower than the leaders. And then, of course, the caution came out that allowed him to save the fuel where he can go at full speed again.
Yep.
Okay, Dixon, but he actually ran a more conservative race than I thought he was going to run.
He just hovered around 8th or 9th for basically the whole race.
There was one time where I think some drivers went 4 wide on the backstretch at one point. Then they settled, before turn 3. He was like right behind that, and he just kind of backed off for him. That may have been a smart move, but it certainly cost him some time against the leaders.
Yeah.
He almost got hit too, if I remember correctly. I forgot what the other driver was, but he when he was going into turn 3 and earlier, like really early in the race, he almost
Bourdais squeezed him into the grass almost.
Yeah, but I think he actually made contact with Bourdais, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, you're right.
He got lucky.
He clipped his rear.
Yeah, his rear. Yeah, he got hit in the rear by Bourdais, and he's probably lucky his tire didn't get sliced.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking the whole time. I just hold my breath.
So maybe he wasn't as conservative in his approach as I thought. That was like the one exception, but for the most part, he generally is more aggressive at Indy than this. But he was balanced for the most part.
He probably just didn't have the car, or he didn't have the confidence in the car to do stuff like that.
And that's the thing with Dixon. Like he's ever since he last won it 10 years ago, he's had the potential to win it. Like all those years. It's just one other driver or one or two other drivers that have better cars than him.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing holding him back.
Seems like it.
Kind of been a surprise. I would have expected him to fade like he usually does, but Ed Carpenter got second, practically dominated the first half of the race.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna fall back to like 10th, through the first couple of stints, but he was really strong in the opening parts of the race.
He was counting on, because I remember they were talking about this, like the radio communication between Carpenter and his team while they were during one of the yellow flags. They said they were hoping to have some type of they were hoping to have a better pit stop than Power. I think on the last couple, or have better pit stops than Power on the last two pit stops. But they just don't have the pit crew to do it, and you can't really expect that. I mean, Power has like the hands down the best pit crew. I think maybe
I'd say
best,
probably Dixon.
Best, second best.
I think they trade weekend to weekend, because I mean Dixon definitely has one of the best crews.
Yeah.
And there's some weeks where I think they are the best.
But I mean, I think most of it had. I mean, I think it had to do with obviously the lack of downforce on these cars, just the difficulty of passing for the lead.
Yeah.
And I think he also just wasn't as aggressive, as he could have been in that second half. So there were probably a lot of factors for why he really didn't have anything for Power, but that was always the big disappointment. I thought he was at least going to have a closer fight with him, but
yeah, like when those two guys tucked off to the pits with 4 to go, like Power had like a second because of that.
He lost the race by 3.15 or sorry, 3.16 seconds.
Yeah.
Like that's almost unheard of.
I think because Carpenter was behind a lap car or something for a little bit longer than Will Power was, and it held him back.
I think that was one of them. No, I think he got lapped. I wouldn't say lapped car. I think he was stuck behind Servia. I think that was the big factor.
Yeah,
he got around Servia right at the beginning.
Power
did, yeah. But I mean, that was the other thing too. Carpenter is just not as good on restarts if he's not in front. If he's in front, on the restart, he can pull away pretty easily. But it shows the benefit of really being in clean air on these new aero kits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always a benefit to be out in the clean air, but it's obviously that effect is a lot more pronounced now this time around.
Yep.
Which goes, all right, winner, Will Power. I don't think anybody's excited about that, but
nope.
Is it really the worst? Was it really the worst thing, to be honest? I mean, part of me, like, it would have been cool to see Stefan Wilson win, but, like, there was also a part of me that's like, okay, come on. Like, I didn't fly out here just to see this guy win.
Yeah, well, at least, I don't know. I felt sort of happy for him, I guess, because, he's wanted it so bad for a while, and that's all he talks about after he won his championship.
I never really thought much about that just because Will Power, I see him more as a road course racer. It's hard to really think of him like in an as an oval racer, but so like my first assumption really was that it didn't really matter that much to him, but
no, it definitely did.
Yeah, it definitely did. And he came close in 2015 where he lost that one to Juan Montoya. And I was rooting for him in 2015 towards the end, just because I didn't want to see Montoya win it a second time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, hopefully that's the last time we have to see him win the 500, and hopefully Penske as well. But that's less realistic.
No, yeah, I mean, for him, I think I was mentioning this. What really was the winning move of the race was when he actually passed Scott Dixon with about, I think, around 15 to go. Because remember, I think Dixon was trying to save fuel at that point. That was right before the Canaan crash.
Yeah, I think he had older tires too.
Yeah.
I think Will Power was like 2 or 3 laps out of the pits, and Dixon was like 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have made a big difference.
That having that better pit crew helped because it wasn't just the fact that he took the lead from Carpenter like right after like the second green flag pit stops, but after those green flag pit stops cycled through, he was up by like 2-3 seconds over him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he went from being like 2-3 seconds behind to 2-3 seconds in front.
Yeah.
Which I think shows that maybe it was probably more of a bad pit stop on Carpenter's end than a good pit stop on Will Power's end, if anything.
Yeah. Maybe probably like his in lap getting into pit road was a little bit better.
Yeah. I don't know. Did I tell you like what I did after the race? Like I hung around for like 2 hours. I was like right near victory lane. I actually got a great shot of Power pulling into the victory lane. It was a cool thing to see. Now I was hoping that he would walk out like after like the pit crew members and the sponsors, everybody, all the whole crowd left victory lane. I hope that he would follow out, maybe shake hands with a couple other fans or sign something for a couple of fans who would hang around. But it never happened. After the long victory lane celebration, he went right to the media room.
He's probably tired.
Well, there was one guy.
Again, he's probably full of adrenaline too from winning. But
yeah, there was one guy. I wasn't sitting next to him. Like I only saw him like after the race. Like he wanted to see what was going on in victory lane. After everybody had left victory lane, like his wife came out, and the guy literally was like, "Hi, Will's wife," and she actually looked at us, and it was so. She kind of looked at us, very cringy. And I'm like, "Oh God, like fuck." And I gave him this weird look, and I'm like, I didn't say anything to him, but like I'm trying to like the look I gave to him was like an implication. I'm basically saying, like, what the hell, dude? Will Power's wife now thinks we're all dorks.
I wouldn't care what she
Yeah.
thinks. Was she like chewing on a plastic bottle like she always is when they cut to her?
Yeah, I know. Well, still, you don't want to. The guy wins the Indy 500. You don't want his family to think you're a dork. It's not that much. That's always weird. Like it's not like it's like a weird habit of hers. Always chewing the plastic bottles.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything to add? I mean, this 500 wasn't that boring. I mean, some people thought it was like one of the most boring ones. I think there was more to it than that.
It was fine.
I mean, it wasn't
the finish, the ending was less exciting than I anticipated.
Yeah,
I was not just because of who won, but just the way it played out, where Power just suddenly had like a 2-second lead for the last couple of laps and was unchallenged. That was disappointing, but.
I think this. I mean, this race was not as exciting as the 2017 race, and I think a lot of that has to do with no Fernando Alonso leading for a good chunk of the race.
Yeah,
but a good battle between Sato and Castroneves. But I mean, it was probably one of the more exciting ones, at least maybe. If we look at over like the last 10 years, like there were some really boring ones, like where you would have guys like Dario Franchitti just dominate the race in 2010, or Scott Dixon pretty much dominate in 2008. This one, I think, was, I mean, it was kind of like if I had to rank like the last 10 Indy 500s in terms of like their overall excitement, or I would probably put this one kind of in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. They have some room to work on this on the aero package for ovals, I think. I mean, it needs to be the lead needs to be contested more often.
Yeah, but I don't want to see something like 2013 where it's like, there were like 68 lead changes and you had guys swapping the lead like every lap. Like I'm not that's
But I thought like 2015 was good.
2015, yeah, that was a good race.
I mean, they could aim for something like that.
That's like the optimal. That's where it should be at.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, this one really reminded me of like the older, 80s 500s where you actually did have leaders pulling out a gap, and it was difficult to trail behind somebody.
Like with those
So I
80s,
guess that was kind of cool, but I would still wish there was a little bit more passing capability.
well, like what made the 80s like the really exciting era was not like all because like passes for the lead were rare, but like it was just like when those passes for the lead happened, like they would usually happen at the end. That's what made them exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else really to add?
Willpower sucks.
Well, no, he has I mean, his face is going on the Borg Warner Trophy, and yours isn't. So I don't really see where you have any room to say that.
Yet. Mine isn't yet. I'll wait for my debut at Andretti next year.
Yeah, and I'll wait for. You're probably not even going to make it through bump day.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's probably going to be. They're saying that there's going to be a lot more entries next year. We could have well up to around 38 or 39, maybe even 40.
All right. Well, I'm just going to clip that soundbite right there so I can play it back a year from now.
Yeah. But, I don't know.
No, that's all I got to say, though.
That will be fun, though. I really hope that we do get more entries for next year. I think making Bump Day great again would be a good start. That would make Indy a lot more exciting.
Yeah, hopefully Kyle Larson gets a ride.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fucking sweet. I would go to that race. I would buy tickets immediately, no matter what my finances were. I would just like go in debt if I had to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably make this a yearly thing if I can. Although next year I'm probably going to look for. I mean, as much fun as it is behind the pit road, just because like there's all this crazy action like behind the scenes that you really don't see on TV. I'm probably going to go for an upper deck seat in the out, behind the outside retaining wall, just because you get the best view. Because like my view kind of sucked for the most part. I was really down low. It was really hard to zero in on a bunch of cars, and my only view was between the start finish line and turn one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fuck you, Roger Penske. I mean, even though like Rick Mears is like my favorite, like all-time open wheel driver, like I still say fuck you, Roger Penske. He's just, the whole Rick Mears thing is kind of just that weird exception I make, just because he was a hell of a talented driver. But no, I really hate the fact that Penske now was able to get a 17th, and hell, he might get up to 20 Indy 500 wins at this point. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really all I have to say.
All right.
So I guess with that, that's another we wrap up yet another exciting month of May. I look forward to the next one. All right.